I know this is supposed to be a relatively contentious one, which makes sense. It's Tulsi Gabbard, so.
Ms. Gabbard, welcome to the Senate Intelligence Committee. I also want to welcome your family in attendance today.
Just skip through
including your
comments on
husband,
their outfits.
Abraham, your mother, Carol, and your sister, friend Dobbin. I also want to acknowledge some very special friends of yours, Dakota Myers and Pat Payne, both Medal of Honor recipients. Gentlemen, on behalf of the grateful nation, I extend my deepest thanks to you and the heroes with whom you served. I also note that our next Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is joining us.
Right.
Apparently, she didn't have enough fun at her own confirmation hearing. Ms. Bondi, welcome and congratulations. And finally,
that's great. We don't need to see this.
We see it all.
To serve should you be confirmed. Now, the president has nominated you to be Director of National Intelligence. Most folks probably don't understand the importance of this position. If confirmed, you would lead 18
You see what I'm seeing, right?
Of the IC. You'll also serve as the principal advisor to the president, the National Security Council, and the Homeland Security Council for all intelligence matters related to national security. And in this role, you'll be responsible for over $100 billion between the National Intelligence Program and the Military Intelligence Program, or the NIP and the MIP as we call them here. It's a position of great importance and significance to our national security, created after one of our worst national security failures, 9/11. For that reason, when Congress established this position, thanks in large part to our colleague and our friend Susan Collins, it mandated in law that any individual nominated for this position must have, and I quote, extensive national security expertise. Now, I appreciated you taking the time to meet with me, and as I noted in that office, both before and after, I continue to have significant concerns about your judgment and your qualifications to meet the standards set by law. First, as I noted previously, the DNI was created
You're right,
in
the
part
chronology is so real with these freaks. This is
a
Democrat.
intelligence
I don't know if you guys know that.
Prior to 9/11, obviously we haven't. But the mission also is to not only share information between the IC, but also with our allies.
Like it says Democrat Virginia right here.
There's no legal requirement that our allies share intelligence with us. It's all predicated on trust. Trust that our allies will protect each other's secrets. It appears to me you have repeatedly excused our adversaries' worst actions, and instead often blamed them on the United States and those very allies. For example, you blame NATO for Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. You rejected the conclusion that Assad used chemical weapons in Syria, despite it being the unanimous assessment of the then Trump administration's DOD, State Department, and IC,
that shit
as well
really
as the
was
assessment
crazy.
of our European allies. Instead, you blame the United States for supporting terrorist groups in Syria. Now, I don't know if your intent in making those statements was to defend those dictators, or if you were simply unaware of the intelligence and how your statements would be perceived. In either case, it raises, at least for this senator, serious questions about your judgment. It also leads me to question whether you can develop the trust necessary to give our allies confidence that they can share their most sensitive intelligence with us. Make no mistake about it. If they stop sharing that intelligence, the United States will be less safe. We've seen this as recently as this past year, where because of those strong intelligence sharing between the United States and Austria, countless lives were saved by disrupting a terrorist attack that was going to take place at the Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. Second, you have been publicly outspoken in your praise and defense of Edward Snowden, someone who betrayed the trust of our nation and jeopardized the security of our country. The truth is, the vast majority of the information he stole and leaked before running off to China and Russia, might I add, had nothing to do with Americans' privacy and compromised our most important sources and methods. And in many ways, we're still paying a price for that. And I believe that Edward Snowden's action put our men and women in uniform in places like Iraq and Afghanistan at risk.
I don't endorse this.
You have celebrated Snowden as a, quote, brave whistleblower, and actually put forward legislation asking for his pardon. Furthermore, when given the opportunity to clarify your position in pre-hearing questions, you declined. And instead you expressed, and again I quote, the DNI has no role in determining whether or not Edward Snowden is a lawful whistleblower. Boy, that is troubling to me in so many ways. Not only do you think that someone who divulged secrets and then ran off to Russia should be celebrated as brave, but you don't seem to understand the DNI's role in determining whistleblower determinations. In fact, the DNI has a significant role in transmitting lawful whistleblower complaints to this committee. They're all laid out right here in the statute. And I would have serious concerns about confirming someone who cannot distinguish between complaints that are made lawfully and those that are made not. In the statute, it says the job of the DNI...
Forgive my ignorance, is Snowden a bad or a good man? He's a good man. The government is spying on us. It's illegal. They hate us and they're evil, and Snowden leaked a lot of information on it. He fled to Russia because he would have faced persecution for it here in the United States, and Russia does not extradite American criminals. Snowden has not always been smart when it comes to broader political stuff. You know, he should be celebrated for the act of whistleblowing. In all likelihood, a lot of the positions that he's had since have been heavily influenced by the fact that the American government literally wants his ass dead, and he has been in Russia essentially like protected by an enemy power, you know?
Is to protect
But
intelligence
politically, he's like a libertarian. He's like a libertarian campist.
sources and methods from unauthorized disclosure. That's a quote. I guess I'm asking, what message would it send to have a DNI who would celebrate the work of a member of the IC or a contractor that would, on their own mission, decide what's appropriate to leak? I don't understand that. Third, until recently, you had a clear and consistent record of opposing FISA 702. I know members on this committee already understand how important this is, but for folks who don't, this law is critical to our national security. Literally 60% on average of what goes into the president's daily brief, what President Trump will read each day in assessing what's going on in the world, comes from this important piece of law that allows us to seek out those foreigners abroad for coverage. And it's helped prevent terrorist attacks. It helps us prevent foreign cyber attacks. It helps us on a topic that a lot of folks are looking at, fentanyl trafficking. Now, many in this Congress and many on the committee have tried to reform this legislation to better balance security and civil liberties. However, you have consistently gone further. Not only did you vote against reauthorizing 702, you actually introduced legislation to fully repeal the whole thing, calling it again, quote, a blatant disregard for our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights. Now, I understand that since you've been nominated to be DNI, you've expressed a change of heart. I think that's welcome, but I have to tell you, as I view this as a job interview, as I try to make my judgment on whether you should be confirmed, I don't find your change of heart credible. Because the world today is more complex and more dangerous than ever before. And we need serious people
he's not super compelling.
with sufficient experience to be able to navigate that complexity. I hope you use this opportunity.
It's one of those difficult positions, right, as a leftist, where you have to understand that anyone who doesn't like Tulsi Gabbard in government will dislike her because they want to protect America's security apparatus, which is evil. But Tulsi Gabbard is not anti-America's security apparatus because she's pro-good things. She's just in favor of foreign powers that are as bad or worse. Like, you know, her opposition here is not based on a support for anything better. She doesn't want to improve on these systems. She just wants to turn them to the favor of the oligarchs who have bought her, you know?
Opportunity to address my concerns and all of the members of this committee. I appreciate again your service, and I'm looking forward to a thorough discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. We welcome back Senator Richard Burr, the former chairman of this committee who has emerged from retirement to introduce Ms. Gabbard. Yet still in retirement, he still seems unable to find a pair of socks.
That's great, man.
Right, and legislative responsibility.
Condolences and prayers are with you and all of your constituents. Again, Chairman Cotton, Vice Chairman Warner, and all of the members of the committee, it's an honor to be here before you to
that I want to pursue.
I'm interested in seeing where things
Chairman.
go with Mark Warner, because my understanding is that he's kind of leading the oppositional charge here.
Say first.
Was she always this orange? This happens to every woman at Mar-a-Lago.
And Ms. Gabbard, let me be clear, at least in my views. I salute your service to our country,
I don't.
but I have serious doubts about your judgment. And those are some of the areas that I want to pursue.
Yeah, it happens to men too.
First, until you were nominated by the president to be the DNI, you consistently praised the actions of Edward Snowden. Some who, I believe, jeopardized the security of our nation, and then, in an effort to flaunt that, fled to Russia. You even called Edward Snowden, and I quote here, a brave whistleblower. Every member of this committee supports the rights of legal whistleblowers. But Edward Snowden isn't a whistleblower. And in this case, I'm a lot closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotistical serial liar and traitor who, quote, deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life. Ms. Gabbard, a simple yes or no question. Do you still think Edward Snowden is brave?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Edward Snowden broke the law. I do not agree with or support with all of the information and intelligence that he released, nor the way in which he did it. There would have been opportunities for him to come to you on this committee or seek out the IG to release that information. The fact is, he also, even as he broke the law, released information that exposed egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that are happening within our government.
Excuse me, Ms.
that
Gabbard.
led to serious reforms that Congress undertook.
Chairman, we got 5 minutes. So I take your answer, you know, and these are your quotes. Brave, please join my bipartisan legislation calling for charges to be dropped against him. Do you disagree that legislation was not appropriate? Do you believe he is brave or not?
Democrats use Snowden as a bad thing really doesn't help with my personal conspiracy that Democrats are paid opposition. Yep, it really... I mean, in fairness, he's the Intelligence Committee vice chair. This is about the Director of Intelligence. So this would be like the area where everyone here would be anti-Snowden, basically, no matter what. It's more expected here. You wouldn't get as much, like, back and forthing. But that being said, yeah, in terms of, like, Tulsi Gabbard being an enemy of the United States and its people, the fact that she's been wildly pro-Assad is way better evidence to that point. Are you kidding me? Like, she was denying the gas attacks. There's literally no reason to do that unless you're a paid agent of the Russian government.
Yeah,
Back those words?
once again, Senator, Edward Snowden broke the law. He
Ms. Gabbard,
also
I'm not
released
talking- we agree that Edward Snowden
that
broke the
exposed
law.
the United States
Asking you a
government's
question whether
illegal
your
programs.
legislation and your words are still your beliefs. Yes or no, please.
I'm making myself very clear. Edward
Also, Snowden's, like, objectively brave. That's not even an argument you can make. Obviously, he's brave. Like, yeah, she's right on this one. It's just stupid to make this the point you're grilling her on.
Snowden broke the law. He released information about the United States
Ma'am, I've
government's
got other issues to
illegal
raise.
activities.
Ma'am,
If I may just finish my thoughts, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets, and I have 4 immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask you again. I don't think you're going to answer. I agree with Tom Cotton. He's a traitor. You, for years, until you got chosen by President Trump, have celebrated this guy as brave. You've called for him to be pardoned, for his charges to be dropped. I cannot imagine a director of national intelligence that would say that kind of behavior is okay. How would we maintain the trust of the IC and the contractors who work for it? How would we maintain?
Just me, man. How can you not condemn this whistleblower? Don't you want to keep the trust of the intelligence community and our private contractors that make tons and tons of money off of the projects we work on with us? Oh my God.
The trust of our Five Eye partners. I find it very troubling. Let me move to 702. I know other members are going to raise this. Remember, the 702 is critical to our national security. 60% of the president's daily brief, 60% of the information President Trump gets every day in a PDB will come from this. You've had a long history of opposing 702. Many members of Congress have. But one of the things you actually done that not many have is not to reform it, but you actually said you wanted to repeal it. But now, whether it's, confirmation conversion or whatever, you call 702 vital. And I'm quoting, because of significant FISA reforms have been enacted since you left Congress. Ms. Gabbard, what are the reforms that have led you to now support 702?
In the short time that I have, Senator, I will just note that my actions in legislation in Congress were done to draw attention to the egregious civil liberties violations that were occurring at that time.
Ms. Gabbard, you said, Ms. Gabbard.
And again, as a reminder, as I have to say, she doesn't care about civil liberties violations. She cheered on Assad as he gassed his own civilians. Russia commits every crime the U.S. government commits to its own people and more. She just doesn't like the United States, so she'll point out when this stuff is done by the United States government and not when it's done elsewhere. That's it. I don't want to have to keep saying it.
Ask you a question.
Grumble,
Please give me the courtesy of responding. You said the reforms now make you support it. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law,
that,
right?
that all of you and your wisdom.
Ms. Gabbard, my time is getting short. But I got to just tell you, after the reforms were passed into law in April of 24, you went on Joe Rogan's podcast in May. The bill is now law. And you said, quote, "This bill took an already bad problem and made it many, many times worse." Again, in my mind, this is a question of judgment. 702 is critical. I appreciate this late conversion, but I'm not sure I buy it because you've had such a consistent position. Again, I know my colleague's going to raise these, but rather than standing up to dictators like Putin and Assad, you've sometimes amplified his talking points. I just do not understand how you can blame NATO for Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine. And when Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, you didn't condemn him. I can go through all the quotes. You actually questioned Americans' intelligence. Now, you mentioned a lot about trust. And one of the things that I'm so proud on this committee is my friend Senator Versa.
This is literally the most pathetic argument of two shitheads I've ever seen.
In this committee, it's the most valuable work I do.
It is crazy that just if you had no other knowledge of this except a vague understanding of what Snowden did so far, you'd have to be pro Tulsi Gabbard. It's crazy.
We have a bipartisan approach to intelligence. I think we have worked to try to keep the intelligence community and earn their trust, and frankly, earn the trust of the American people. But I respectfully, ma'am, I just don't believe on your judgment and credibility issues that this is the appropriate role that you should take going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Gabbard, Edward Snowden does stand out as having done particularly grave harm to our national security by revealing top secret information, including sensitive sources and methods, thus jeopardizing agents in the field. So let me ask you a question. If confirmed, would you support or recommend a pardon or any kind of clemency for Edward Snowden?
Oh my God, dude.
Thank you for the question, Senator Collins. If confirmed as the Director of National Intelligence, my responsibility would be to ensure the security of our nation's secrets and would not take actions to advocate for any actions related to Snowden.
So the answer is no. Is that correct? In 2020, you introduced the Protect Brave Whistleblowers Act, which would amend the Espionage Act to make it more difficult to prosecute individuals who reveal classified information. In particular, the bill would allow
I'm pro
individuals
Tulsi Gabbard now. This is
to disclose even top secret information as long as it's not done with the specific intent to injure the United States or advantage any foreign nation. Your bill would also have created an affirmative defense if public disclosure of classified information were made for several reasons, one of which was to expose gross waste of funds. I strongly oppose this legislation, which would hamper our ability to prosecute people who give our adversaries classified information. So let me ask you this.
Was Assad right all along? Yeah, I'm being like negatively polar. I'm thinking in my head like, shit, could they have just opened the windows? Wait, hold on. I don't know. Now that I think about it, like, it's like if you fart, you open up the car window. I don't know if I buy the narrative. The white helmets said they were doing some pretty sussy shit out there by the hospitals. I don't know. I'm being pushed back.
Gabbard, do you still support providing individuals who have access to top secret information with the ability to make their own decisions regarding whether that information should be publicly disclosed, even though disclosure may cause tremendous harm to our country or our allies?
Senator, we cannot and should not have individual vigilantes within the intelligence community making their own decisions about how and where and when to expose our nation's secrets. The intent of the legislation that you have pointed out was pointed towards ensuring due process for those who are charged under the Espionage Act in a court of law. This is a law that has been abused in some cases.
At least it's a strong argument that both Dems and Republicans are bought by the MIC. Oh, for sure, especially here. I mean, here in the intelligence, the Senate intelligence community, absolutely, 100%.
Cases and used for political purposes.
Let's move it along.
President Obama charged
I want to see how this develops.
And you will be the one actually briefing him on a daily basis, correct?
That's correct.
And the president's daily brief, and we've heard that that is composed of about 60% of it's composed of information gleaned by collection under Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. I've heard your comments to Senator Wyden and others.
Have you seen that dude who tries to argue the MIC isn't real? What dude? What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. It's like self-evidently real.
I talked about the importance of getting dissenting views in front of the president so that we don't have groupthink, which can be very dangerous, particularly in the intelligence collection areas. And I appreciate your agreeing that presenting the policymakers, including the president, with dissenting views is very important. Are you aware that overwhelmingly the courts that have looked at a challenge to Section 702 based on the Fourth Amendment and any potential warrant requirement have overwhelmingly said that the Fourth Amendment is not implicated by search of lawfully collected intelligence?
I am aware, yes, Senator.
And do you disagree with that?
What I began to say in answer to Senator Wyden's previous question on this issue is, number one, the decision about a warrant requirement will be yours to make,
Well, you
not
will be
mine as the Director of National Intelligence.
You'll be the Director of National Intelligence, and people will be wanting to hear from you about what we should do as
these issues. Thanks for being able to come through it. But there are thousands of intelligence
This guy's hair and voice do not
employees
match.
and folks that have also taken an oath to the country and to the Constitution. They serve our country every day. They're the folks that don't have a uniform on, that no one ever says thank you to them, and no one ever buys them lunch.
Is Edward Snowden a traitor to the
Oh my God, dude. She praised Assad. She defended and did like equivalent Holocaust denialism over one of the most brutal dictators of the 21st century. Please. Holy shit, man. Sure, give me this guy's whole bit since he's so fired up. Why not?
No place in that assessment and that providing to the president and his advisors with all of those options available.
Thank you, Senator Langford. Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to repeat my colleague's question to you. Thank you for being here to answer these questions and for your service. Was Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
Senator, I will also repeat my answer. He broke the law.
You said earlier that you were offended by a question that my colleague from Kansas asked, which I think was his duty as somebody on this committee to fulfill his responsibility to advise and consent. We are not here to be a rubber stamp for the President of the United States. So let me ask you again, do you believe, as the chairman of this committee believes, as the vast majority of members of our intelligence agencies believe, that Edward Snowden was a traitor to the United States of America?
Senator, if confirmed as
This is when the
Director of
rubber hits
National
the road.
Intelligence,
This is
I
when
will
this is
work
not-
with you to make sure
This
that
is
there is
not
not
a
another
moment for
Snowden-like
social
leak.
media. It's not a moment to propagate theories, conspiracy theories, or attacks on journalism in the United States. This is when you need to answer the questions of the people whose votes you're asking for to be confirmed as the chief intelligence officer of this nation. As my colleague said, this is not about you. It's about the people that serve the intelligence agencies of the United States. Is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America? That is not a hard question to answer when the stakes are this high.
Senator, as someone who has
your
served
answer
in
yes
uniform,
or no?
I
Is
am a
Edward
surgeon,
Snowden
Dr.
a
Hunt. You're
traitor
right.
to the United States of America?
as someone who has
I'll go on
worn
to
our
my
uniform
questions.
in
This
combat, I understand how critical our national security
Apparently
is.
you don't. Apparently you don't. Let me ask you, I've worked very hard to put your own words here in front of the committee. Not, fake news, not conspiracy theories on the internet, but the actual things that you have said. On February 23rd, 2022, at the very moment that Russian tanks were rolling across the peaceful border of Ukraine for the first time, you tweeted at 11:30 p.m. your time, "This war and suffering could have easily been avoided if Biden administration / NATO had simply acknowledged Russia's legitimate security
Okay,
concerns."
so this is an actual thing worth considering. So this is an actual set of questions that I care about.
Regarding Ukraine's becoming a member of NATO. Did you say that, yes or no?
I believe you're reading my tweet, Senator.
Yes is the answer. A few months later, you said on your podcast, and I quoted it, quote, "But this regime change war against Russia that the U.S. and NATO are waging via their proxy in Ukraine didn't begin when Putin invaded Ukraine. They had their eyes set on this objective long before that." Did you say that, yes or no?
I believe you're reading my tweet.
Thank
There's
you.
a
The
lot
answer is
more.
yes.
You're quoting a podcast that
I'm
provided
happy
much
to have
more
a conversation
context.
with the chairman about whether I'm taking anything out of context. I don't think I am. And your answer is yes. Are you aware that your comments about proxy wars and Russia's legitimate security concerns, to quote your own words, are in alignment with what the Russians have said to justify their invasion of Ukraine? Yes or no?
Senator, I don't pay attention to Russian
So I'll
propaganda.
take
My
that as
goal is to
I'll
speak
take
the
that as
truth,
the answer is no.
regardless of whether
Thank
you like it or not.
I'll take it. That's fine. You said you are used to speaking truth to power.
Yes.
I don't pay attention to Russian propaganda. I just effortlessly regurgitate it. I just repeat it, but I'm just that good. Like I don't need to copy it. I just from first principles reconstruct it without even needing to glance the original item.
I'm shocked to hear you now say that, you are agreeing. I'm not shocked because I know you said it. You are agreeing that you basically said that Putin was justified in rolling over the peaceful border of Ukraine, the first time since World War II that a free nation had been invaded by a totalitarian state. And you were there at 11:30 p.m. that night to say that you were with them, not us. And let me tell you something. You say you don't know because you don't read Russian propaganda. Russian state TV then aired your comments. Did you know that?
Senator, I think you should also quote the statement that I made criticizing Putin for his invasion of Ukraine.
What I would say, Mr. Chairman, with the last, it's up to all of us. We're the Senate. We get to decide whether we're going to confirm this nominee. Obviously, we didn't select this nominee. But can't we do better than somebody who doesn't believe in 702? Can't we believe that somebody who can't answer whether Snowden was a traitor 5 times today, who made excuses for Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the first time that I'm aware of any American official has done that? I'm questioning her judgment. That's the issue
Please,
that's
Skip,
at
but it's kind of
stake
funny.
here. And as you said, and I totally agree, this is about our intelligence officers. And you cannot answer. Most of what we do here is in secret. This is one of the very few opportunities that you will ever have to have a conversation with this
they are more
panel
mad about
in
Snowden than
public.
anything else, for sure.
And the record is going to be very clear about the position you took with regard to Edward Snowden. And the record is going to be very clear about your reaffirmation of the statements you made in the middle of the night when Russia was invading the free country of Ukraine. And I
Senator
hope
Bennett,
we will
your
take
time-
that in
your time has expired.
consideration when
Senator
we
Bennett,
have this vote.
Your time has expired. I will note that during Senator Bennett's question and answer, there was 2 disturbances in the room. The first sounded like a
Really?
cell phone. I would ask everyone on both sides of the dais, if you have not silenced or turned off your cell phone, please do so now. The second disturbance was the cries of a small child. We will welcome such disturbances because the cries of an infant are the sound of answered prayers. Senator Rounds.
Not only here, but the answered prayers in church when they cry as well, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you for your service to our country.
I love my very normal government.
I think part of the discussion here, as you can see, we feel very, very strongly about
Gillibrand's from
FISA
15015. Is
702.
it a good bit?
We work with it literally every day. As you can also tell, we have some very, very
Cotton
strong
loves the sound of
feelings here
children
with
crying,
regard
that's
to
true.
the actions of Edward Snowden. I want to come back, and I'm going to
Snowden,
give you an
Snowden, Snowden,
opportunity
Snowden,
to
Snowden.
make any corrections or to make any other comments with regard to both of those issues that have been brought up here. But before I get into that, I want to go back into a little bit of your previous history as well. You did serve as you served as a congressperson for, 8 years?
Yes, Senator.
And during that time, you served on the Armed Services Committee. And during that time period, you did carry a TS-SCI clearance. You worked your way through that time period. You had an opportunity to look at a lot of information. Can you share just a little bit about the way that you've looked at that, not just as a member of the congressional delegation from Hawaii, but also during the time in which you were a lieutenant colonel serving up through and
Does he
including
know we
a
know it's a
battalion
comb over?
commander. Talk about that
It's
a
like a
little bit,
kid
please.
hiding under their bed
Thank you,
sheets.
Senator,
know,
for
he
your
thinks that
question. In both
totally
of those
invisible.
roles, I had exposure to different sides of how critical our national security is.
Right. If it was quiet
and
for the past
unique
little while,
role
it's because I was figuring out how to join NL's Discord to peep at the Peloton server. I'm trying to like work out a plan in my head for how to do 3 to 4 years of progress in maybe 3 months. We'll see what we can do. I'm very impatient.
that our intelligence
I'm here now,
community
though.
plays in ensuring our national security. My most recent deployment with the military
Her
was
hair
as
is
part of
retarded.
a
We can dislike Tulsi Gabbard without pretending that she's not mother. Okay?
Joint Special Operations Task Force to Djibouti and Somalia, where our mission was to support the Somalis government and military's focus on defeating al-Shabaab, which is al-Qaeda's element there within East Africa. One of the things that we came across there that I hadn't known previously, even having served in Congress for 8 years because it hadn't been focused on, was how al-Shabaab specifically was the biggest funder of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which again should be of unique concern and interest to our own national security concerns. Being able to engage with world leaders in both capacities, in uniform and as a member of Congress, being a customer of intelligence in both of those roles gives me a unique perspective, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, to come in with fresh eyes, to come in with some of the frustrations that I experienced as a member of Congress with the lack of information that we received from the intelligence community, oftentimes feeling as though everything we heard in a brief could have been read in the newspaper that morning, and the essential oversight role that all of you play here in Congress. You are unable to do so unless you are equipped with that intelligence and information. I'm committed to fulfilling that responsibility if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence.
Okay, now, when you and I first met, I told you that I thought you needed to kind of take a change in the direction that you were going with regard to how you were approaching the private conversations, and that we wanted you to sit down and meet with some folks who were directly involved in gathering the intelligence and so forth. You did that.
Yes.
And then we came back and we sat back down again. And what those individuals who I had talked to and I asked you to talk with shared with me that they thought that you were a quick study and that you had the opportunity to look at a number of the issues that this committee considers to be extremely sensitive, and 702 in particular. Now, I've got about a minute left, but I want to give you an opportunity in front of this committee to share your position in your own words about how strong or how much it is needed with regard to the continuation
What you
of
type in there, boss?
702.
It has to do with
and your
cycling.
support
You
for it.
don't need to worry about it.
Thank you, Senator. 702 provides a unique security tool and capability that is essential for our national security. There are a number of areas that we would be blind.
In Snowden, extremely old news. Intel committee people despise Snowden because he won, and they can't stand that. Normally, America gets to one-up these people. Normally, America wins in the end. Snowden was one of the rare examples where he did it, he got away with it, he left, and nothing's happened. They haven't been able to do anything about it. They want him minced. Yeah, they want him in a bag. They want him mulched. They want to hit him with rocks. They hate him. So it's like on their mind forever and ever and ever, you know?
From a national security perspective without this capability. It also must exist next to having safeguards in place to ensure Americans' civil liberties are protected. As you know, Senator, it is illegal under 702 to target any U.S. person. My concerns that I stated in the past about how
which stated that, quote, Snowden caused tremendous damage to national security,
Oh
unquote,
my
including
God.
to military.
Thank you, Mr. In the U.S. Army, including holding commands at multiple levels and served through administrations of both political parties. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
Throughout your time in the U.S. House and in the Army, you've been both a consumer of intelligence and a policymaker. how important is it for the intelligence community to provide timely, relevant, factual, and objective intelligence to policymakers?
Senator, it is nothing less than a matter of our national security. Too often in the multitude of intelligence failures that our country has seen, that objective has not been met. Now, CIA Director Ratcliffe talked about in his testimony before this committee how the CIA's own internal metrics have shown that analytic objectivity has gone down with truth behind how and why this has occurred.
Michael Bennett gets some more time.
Contact with Russian intelligence, letting us have a
Sure,
second
Michael Bennett,
question.
see us out.
Thank
All
you
anyone
again
wants
for
to talk
hanging in
about is
there with
Snowden
this
anyway.
Discussion, Colonel Gabbard. The House Intelligence Committee review of the Snowden disclosures found not only that he was a traitor, but that since Snowden's arrival in Moscow, he has had and continues to have contact with Russian intelligence services. You can see the deep concern on both sides of the aisle here. You had in your opening statement all kinds of complaints about former officials in the intelligence agencies, the United States press, the journalists, the media, Democrats, suggested that you weren't being treated fairly when you were coming here. No condemnation
Can you
at all.
control F
for-
Snowden on the transcript? That's actually an important exercise, I feel. For CPU. I don't think it loads all the instances. Yeah, it's only saying 60. Wait, if I just say snow? No, it's only saying 60. Guarantee you it's more than that. 0% chance. There's only 60 mentions. It caps at 60? Okay, I didn't know that.
For this, which leads me to wonder why it is so hard for you to say that Edward Snowden was a traitor to our country. And the question I guess I have for you is how, if you can't say that, you feel that that the concerns that this committee has, that we need somebody here who will actually honor their oath, as you said. Maybe I should make it easier for you. Edward Snowden did not honor his oath to the Constitution, which is what you just said was the most important duty, most important obligation that you have in this role.
Uh-huh.
Why is he being treated like a folk hero by you instead of the traitor that he was?
Senator, as I said, my focus and what should be of relevance to all of you and everyone watching is what I will do as Director of National Intelligence to work with you to make sure there's not another Snowden-like leak, given the paramount importance of our national security and keeping our nation's secrets. I've laid out a number of ways that I intend to do that, if confirmed, in fulfilling my responsibility in this role.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to continue along with regard to China because it's such an important part of your portfolio.
That's impossible.
And
You can't do that, lady. You can't talk about anything other than Edward Snowden. Get this woman out of here. Police! Hop, 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 hop.
On armed services, you've had hearings over the last 15 years about their architecture and how they're building up space capabilities, sea capabilities, Air Force capabilities, every type of capability they possibly could. And that aligned with their malign foreign influence and with their ambition with regard to Taiwan. It just creates a very dangerous scenario and concerning one. And so I wanted to ask you about Japan because recently, about a year and a half ago, 13 months ago, you said that you didn't think it was wise to allow Japan to build up their own defense architecture. And you thought it was short-sighted. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because our alliance with Japan is so important in our ability to defend against malign activities of China, not only geographically, but because for the last 50 years, they've been close allies that we rely on. We share intelligence, we share operations. They are a great ally. So what was your concern about? And have you had any views that have shifted in that regard?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Senator. I agree. Japan has been a strong ally of the United States in a different capacity as a member of the Hawaii National Guard. I've gone and conducted training missions in Japan with the Japanese Self-Defense Force their forces and their constitution has been primarily focused on self-defense. The concerns that I had raised previously had to do with really looking at the bigger picture of the context of the history with Japan and China, and recognizing the implications of how this kind of shift from a self-defense posture that Japan has had constitutionally to a more offensive posture could result in escalation. And given the history, we need to acknowledge what the ramifications could be to our own security interests. And that's something that I am looking forward to being able to provide to all of you and to the President, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, is that in-depth analysis and assessment so that various policies or actions that you all or the President are considering are fully thought through, given that broader context of nuance of history and the complexities that exist within the Asia-Pacific region. Having grown up there, I'm very familiar with.
But you do
Thank
want-
you, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Gabbard,
Just get us to the end
when
of
Russia
this,
was
then
denying
RFK2.
Assad's use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort.
I can't do this anymore, guys. I'm really sorry. I'm trying to diligently supervise and commentate on the decline of the country. I can't. The Kash Patel confirmation hearing is 6 hours long.